She stayed calm when he lied. She stayed silent when he cheated. But at the divorce hearing, she didn't stay quiet. When her ex declared, "The mansion, it goes to Vanessa," she reached into her purse and changed everything. Some victories don't need shouting, just timing. Subscribe to uncover how Savannah turned the final chapter into a new beginning. Her story isn't over. It's just getting smarter. Chapter 1. The Perfect Wife. The Charleston summer sun bathed the antebellum mansion in a golden hue as Savannah Hartley stood on the wraparound porch, her auburn hair catching fire in the late afternoon light. At 32, she possessed the kind of beauty that seemed both effortless and impossible. High cheekbones, emerald eyes that changed color with her mood, and a graceful poise cultivated through years in Charleston's high society. The sound of tires on gravel announced Daniel's return. Another late night, another perfume that wasn't hers clinging to his custom suits, another evening of pretending. Savannah took a deep breath, smoothing the fabric of her navy silk dress. 7 years of marriage had taught her many things, but perhaps the most valuable lesson was how to smile through betrayal. "Darling," Daniel called as he entered, his voice carrying that familiar artificial warmth he reserved for public appearances and family gatherings. At 45, Daniel Whitmore embodied old money privilege. Tall, distinguished, with carefully maintained silver temples that only enhanced his authoritative presence. "You wouldn't believe the day I've had." "I made reservations at Charleston Grill. The Morgans will be joining us. Eleanor specifically requested your company." Daniel loosened his tie, pouring himself 2 fingers of bourbon without offering her a drink. "Cancel them. Something's come up with the Vanderhorst project." The Vanderhorst project. Savannah had to admire his consistency. It was always the same excuse, the same project, the same late nights that mysteriously corresponded with Vanessa Parker's social media check-ins at hotel bars across the city. "Of course," Savannah nodded, reaching for her phone. "I'll let them know." Daniel barely looked at her as he disappeared upstairs, his attention already fixed on his phone, thumbs typing rapidly. Savannah watched him go, mentally calculating the minutes until he would emerge freshly showered, claiming an urgent business dinner. In the silence of their grand foyer, with its crystal chandelier casting prisms across imported marble, Savannah allowed herself one moment of genuine emotion. Her fingers tightened around her phone until her knuckles turned white. Then, just as quickly, she relaxed them, leaving no trace of the storm within. She had played the part of the perfect Whitmore wife for 7 years, the gracious hostess, the charitable foundation head, the silent supporter of Daniel's political ambitions. She had restored this historic mansion to its former glory, researching period-appropriate details and personally overseeing every aspect of the renovation. Each doorknob, each stained glass window, each heart pine plank had been selected with painstaking care. And now, Daniel planned to give it all to Vanessa. Savannah moved to the antique secretary desk in the library, unlocking the hidden compartment with a small brass key she kept on a chain around her neck. Inside lay a thick manila envelope, untouched since their wedding day. She ran her fingers across the embossed legal seal, remembering the day she'd insisted on the prenuptial agreement, the document Daniel had signed without reading, too eager to announce their engagement to Charleston society, too confident in his family's legal team to worry about a young interior designer from Savannah, Georgia. Too arrogant to imagine she'd be anything but grateful for the Whitmore name. Footsteps on the stairs announced Daniel's return. Savannah quickly replaced the envelope and locked the compartment. "Don't wait up," he called, adjusting his cufflinks, the ones she'd given him on their first anniversary, now worn only when meeting Vanessa. "This deal could take all night." Savannah smiled her perfect wife smile. "Good luck, Downling. I hope you get everything you deserve." As the front door closed behind him, Savannah pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd saved months ago, but never called. "Claudia Morris's office," a professional voice answered. "This is Savannah Hartley. I'd like to schedule an appointment with Ms. Morris as soon as possible." Savannah's voice remained steady as she added, "It's regarding a divorce." After ending the call, Savannah walked through the rooms of the mansion, her mansion, taking in every detail she'd lovingly restored: the hand-painted ceiling medallions, the salvaged heart pine floors, the custom-dyed silk drapes that perfectly matched the original shade found behind the parlor wainscoting. She paused before the antique mirror in the hallway, studying her reflection. The woman who stared back was beautiful, yes, but for too long she had allowed that beauty to be her only currency. Behind the emerald eyes lay a mind sharper than anyone in the Whitmore family had bothered to discover. "Time to show them who I really am," she whispered to her reflection. If you're enjoying this story of strength and redemption, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens when Savannah finally stands up for herself in our next chapter. Comment below if you've ever known someone who underestimated a woman to his great regret.
Chapter 2. The Breaking Point. The Charlestown Law Group occupied the entire top floor of a renovated cotton warehouse on the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the water, but Savannah Hartley wasn't admiring the scenery. Her attention was fixed on Claudia Morse, the most feared divorce attorney in 3 states, as the older woman reviewed the prenuptial agreement with laser-focused precision. "Mrs. Whitmore?" Claudia began. "Savannah, please," she interrupted, her fingers absently twisting the platinum wedding band she would soon remove. "Savannah," Claudia corrected, setting down the document and removing her reading glasses. "I've handled divorces for oil barons, tech billionaires, and European royalty. I've seen every dirty trick and underhanded tactic imaginable." She tapped the prenup with one manicured fingernail. "But I've never seen anything quite like this." Rain lashed against the windows, the gray sky mirroring the tension in the room. Savannah's auburn hair was pulled back in a sleek chignon, her emerald eyes clear and determined. Gone was the demure society wife. In her place sat a woman reclaiming her power one calculated move at a time. "Is there a problem?" Savannah asked, her voice betraying no emotion. Claudia's stern expression gave way to a rare smile. "On the contrary, this prenuptial agreement is extraordinarily favorable to you, particularly regarding the property on South Battery Street. The historical preservation clause you insisted on including essentially guarantees that if Daniel attempts to transfer ownership of the property during your marriage without your written consent, the entire property reverts solely to me." "I know." "Did he even read this before signing it?" Savannah's lips curved slightly. "Daniel has always believed himself to be the smartest person in any room. He assumed his family lawyers had protected him. He never considered that I might have consulted my own attorney." Claudia leaned back in her chair, studying Savannah with newfound respect. "And you're certain he's planning to transfer the mansion to Vanessa Parker?" "I overheard him on the phone last week. He told her the mansion would be her welcome home gift once our divorce was finalized." 7 years, Miss Morse. 7 years I spent restoring that house, researching every historical detail, working with conservationists to ensure every element was period appropriate, while he was busy working on his affair. "Affairs," Savannah corrected. "Vanessa is merely the latest, the one he's decided is worth leaving for." She reached into her designer handbag and withdrew a flash drive. "I've documented everything. The unexplained charges, the business trips that coincided with her social media posts from the same locations, the text messages I recovered. Claudia accepted the flash drive with a nod. This will be useful, though with this prenup, we're already in an extremely strong position. She hesitated, studying Savannah's face. May I ask why you stayed for 7 years? The question hung in the air between them as Savannah turned to watch the rain cascading down the windows. Lightning slashed over the harbor, illuminating her profile for a brief moment. My mother cleaned houses for families like the Whitmores. She worked herself to exhaustion so I could attend design school. When I met Daniel, he seemed different, charming. He valued my eye for beauty, my knowledge of historical preservation. Her voice hardened. Or so I thought. It didn't take long to realize I was just another acquisition, the beautiful, talented wife who could restore his family's historical home and look perfect on his arm at fundraisers. But you stayed, Claudia prompted. I stayed because I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't leave with nothing after giving him everything. Savannah turned back to face Claudia, her eyes dry. The mansion on South Battery Street isn't just a house. It's my life's work, my masterpiece, and I will not allow him to give it to his mistress. Claudia nodded, a silent understanding passing between the two women. The hearing is scheduled for next Thursday. Judge Harriman is presiding. Caroline Harriman? Savannah asked, her eyebrow arching slightly. Yes. Do you know her? We serve on the Historical Charleston Foundation board together. Savannah allowed herself a small smile. She was particularly impressed with my paper on preserving antebellum architectural elements while updating infrastructure. Claudia's eyes gleamed with appreciation for this unexpected advantage. Daniel has no idea what's coming, does he? Daniel, Savannah said as she stood to leave, gathering her Hermes scarf against the rain. Daniel has never truly seen me. That's about to change. Later that evening, as Savannah walked through the quiet rooms of the mansion, her phone chimed with a text message. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. Working late, don't wait up. Through the front windows, she could see the media vans beginning to gather. The Whitmore divorce was big news in Charleston society circles. Daniel's father had been lieutenant governor. His family controlled half the real estate developments along the coast. The vultures were circling, eager for any morsel of scandal. Savannah moved to the antique writing desk in the study, the one she'd found at an estate sale and restored herself, and began to write. Not the apologetic note of a discarded wife, but the careful inventory of a woman documenting what was rightfully hers. Each room, each antique, each piece of history she had salvaged and brought back to life. In the master bedroom, she methodically packed Daniel's monogrammed shirts and custom suits into expensive luggage, not in anger, but with the same precise attention to detail she brought to all her work. When she finished, the closet contained only her things, a physical manifestation of the separation she had already completed in her heart. The mansion creaked and settled around her, its 19th century bones whispering secrets of other women who had endured, survived, and sometimes even triumphed within these walls. Savannah ran her hand along the banister she had stripped and refinished herself, feeling the smooth wood beneath her fingertips. Just a few more days, she whispered to the house, and then we'll both be free. Chapter 3. The Reckoning. The Charleston County Courthouse hummed with anticipation. Reporters clustered on the marble steps, their cameras trained on the imposing entrance. Inside, the gallery was packed with Charleston's elite, social climbers, old money families, and curious onlookers drawn by the promise of scandal. Savannah Hartley entered through a side door, a vision in a tailored ivory suit that set off her auburn hair and fair complexion. The outfit was a deliberate choice. Powerful, yet understated, expensive without being ostentatious. She moved with quiet confidence, emerald eyes focused straight ahead, ignoring the whispers that followed in her wake. Claudia Morris walked beside her, case files tucked under one arm. "Are you ready?" the attorney asked quietly. Savannah nodded once. "I've been ready for years." They took their seats at the plaintiff's table just as the doors swung open again. Daniel Whitmore strode in with his attorney, Jackson Thornwell, a man whose family had represented Whitmores for 3 generations. Daniel exuded his usual arrogant confidence, nodding to acquaintances in the gallery, straightening his Italian silk tie as if he were attending a business meeting rather than the dissolution of his marriage. His eyes met Savannah's briefly across the room. She saw the momentary flash of uncertainty in his expression before the mask of indifference slid back into place. He hadn't expected her to look so composed, so formidable. "All rise," the bailiff called as Judge Caroline Harriman entered the courtroom. The proceedings began with the standard formalities: case numbers, introductions, preliminary statements. Savannah sat perfectly still, her posture betraying none of the emotions churning beneath her calm exterior. This was the culmination of years of silent preparation, of documenting every betrayal, of protecting herself while Daniel believed she remained oblivious. "Your Honor," Jackson Thornwell began, whose Charleston drawl pronounced despite his Harvard education, "my client is prepared to offer a generous settlement. Mrs. Whitmore will receive an appropriate financial package reflecting the duration of the marriage, while Mr. Whitmore will retain the family properties, including the historic residence on South Battery Street." Judge Harriman turned her attention to Claudia. "Miss Morris, does your client find these terms acceptable?" "Not remotely, Your Honor," Claudia replied, rising to her feet. "In fact, we're prepared to demonstrate that Mr. Whitmore has already violated the terms of the prenuptial agreement, specifically regarding the South Battery property." Daniel leaned forward, whispering urgently to his attorney. Thornwell's expression remained carefully neutral, but the slight tightening around his eyes betrayed his concern. "Your Honor," Thornwell interjected, "the prenuptial agreement clearly states that Whitmore family properties remain with the Whitmore family in the event of dissolution." "If I may, Your Honor," Claudia countered, approaching the bench with a document, "the agreement does indeed contain that provision, with one critical exception." The courtroom fell silent as Judge Harriman reviewed the document, her eyes widening slightly as she reached the relevant clause. She looked up, her gaze settling on Daniel with newfound interest. "Mr. Whitmore," the judge addressed him directly, "were you aware of this historical preservation clause regarding the South Battery property?" Daniel's confidence wavered visibly. My attorneys reviewed the agreement thoroughly before I signed." "That doesn't answer my question. Were you personally aware that any attempt to transfer ownership of the property during your marriage without Mrs. Whitmore's written consent would result in sole ownership reverting to her?" Before Daniel could respond, the courtroom doors opened. Heads turned as Vanessa Parker slipped into the back row, a willowy blonde in her late 20s, dressed in an inappropriately tight black dress, her presence a deliberate provocation. Daniel's eyes darted between Vanessa and the judge, his composure crumbling. "The mansion is mine," he insisted, his voice rising. "It's been in the Whitmore family for generations." "Actually," Savannah spoke for the first time, her voice clear and steady, "the South Battery house was purchased at auction in 1997. After the previous owners lost it to tax liens. It was never a Whitmore family heirloom. That's public record." Judge Harriman nodded. "Mrs. Whitmore is correct, and according to these documents, Mr. Whitmore has already taken steps to transfer the property." She looked at Daniel over her reading glasses. "Care to explain?" The gallery erupted in whispers. Daniel turned to his attorney in panic, but Thornwell appeared equally blindsided. "Your Honor," Daniel began, loosening his collar as sweat beaded on his forehead, "there's clearly been a misunderstanding. I was merely exploring options." "The mansion?" he suddenly blurted, gesturing toward Vanessa in the back of the courtroom.
It goes to Vanessa, of course. She'll be moving in after the divorce is finalized. That's been the plan all along.
The admission hung in the air, damning in its arrogance. Savannah felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. 7 years of pretending, of being underestimated and overlooked, had led to this moment of perfect clarity. She opened her handbag and withdrew the original prenuptial agreement, sealed in its envelope. I believe the court will find the details of our prenuptial agreement enlightening, she said, her voice carrying through the now silent courtroom. Judge Harriman accepted the document, reviewing it carefully before looking up at Daniel with thinly veiled disgust. Mr. Whitmore, not only have you violated the explicit terms of this agreement, but you've attempted to mislead the court about your intentions regarding the property. She turned to Savannah. Mrs. Whitmore, according to this document, you are now the sole legal owner of the South Battery Street property. Daniel stood abruptly. This is absurd. She tricked me. By having you sign a legal document that you failed to read? Judge Harriman asked pointedly. That's not trickery, Mr. Whitmore. That's your negligence. The gallery erupted again, reporters frantically taking notes, society matrons whispering behind manicured hands. Vanessa slipped out as quietly as she had arrived, her dream mansion evaporating before her eyes. Furthermore, the judge continued, given Mr. Whitmore's demonstrated bad faith, the court is inclined to reconsider the entire financial settlement. She glanced at her watch. We'll take a 30-minute recess. I suggest Mr. Whitmore and his counsel use this time to reconsider their position. As the courtroom began to empty, Daniel approached Savannah, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. You planned this from the beginning. You never loved me, he hissed, keeping his voice low. I loved you completely, Daniel. You just never noticed because you were too busy loving yourself. She gathered her belongings with deliberate calm. The movers will deliver your things to your office tomorrow. The locks at the house have already been changed. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Daniel, the leak in the master bathroom you never bothered to fix? I had it repaired last week. It would have eventually damaged the original plaster ceiling in the dining room below. I know how little you care about such details, but some of us value preservation. With that, Savannah walked away, her heels clicking confidently across the marble floor. Outside, the reporters surged forward, shouting questions, cameras flashing. She paused at the top of the courthouse steps, the Charleston sun illuminating her auburn hair like a corona of fire. For 7 years, she had been Daniel Whitmore's beautiful silent accessory. Now, standing alone in the glare of public attention, Savannah found her true voice. Sometimes, she told the eager reporters, her words measured and clear, what looks like submission is actually strength gathering itself. I restored that house because I believe in preserving history, in honoring craftsmanship, in protecting beautiful things that deserve to endure. She smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her face, including myself. As the cameras captured her triumphant moment, Savannah felt lighter than she had in years. The mansion on South Battery Street awaited her, not as Mrs. Daniel Whitmore, but as Savannah Hartley, preservationist, designer, and architect of her own destiny. If this story of a woman reclaiming her power and dignity resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring narratives of triumph over adversity. Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our next compelling story of resilience and redemption.